Good morning, everybody. I hope you all had a great Christmas. We are still all embedded and surrounded by the feelings that Christmas brings to us, right? So I'm glad that the house is almost full, which is great, of discarnate, and discarnate brothers and sisters are probably much greater in number. And today we are here to continue to talk about Christmas. The theme of the month is the book The Spirit's Religion, trying to translate here, from Chico Xavier. And this book actually studied the Spirit's book. So we have a few questions extracted, and the topic is really related to Christmas. And we will talk about it, and we decided to call it our Everyday's Christmas. But before we get into it, I would like to invite Teresa for our initial reading. And then I'll go for the prayer and we'll get started. And at the end, we'll have our passes as we usually do. Teresa?
So I will be reading a passage from the book Happy Life by Divaldo Franco and the Spirit of Joanna de Angelis. Never deceive anyone. Life is a great collector and compensator. Whatever you do to others will return to you. The harvest follows the sowing. He who cheats, deceives, or betrays is only hurting himself. He disrespects himself first and then reaps the effects of the reproachable behavior. Be honest to yourself and, in consequence, to your neighbor. Use truth with the goal of helping and never as a weapon of aggression or revenge. Truth is like a diamond that needs the right kind of protection to remain safe and avoid wounding others when it's thrown. Your truth may not be the legitimate truth, or at least not the complete truth. Keep it for the right moment, when you can dignify and lift up one who has fallen or who is approaching the abscess of madness and illusion.
That is truth indeed. And I would like to invite all of us for our initial prayer. And first of all, elevating our gratitude to God, our Creator, for another day in this beautiful planet, for the opportunity we all had to wake up in another day, for being here as another effort to together improve ourselves and to ask the protection and the blessings of the above once more. Dear God, we ask in this very moment that you may inspire every single one of us to absorb the lessons of this morning in this brief instance. We would like also to request your blessings to our children, those who will be leading, guiding, and serving tomorrow. May we all give them the examples. May this house be another support system to them. We would like to request your blessings to all here present, incarnate and discarnate, and also to all of our brothers and sisters who are not able to join us this morning. Wherever they are, they may receive the inspirations and the blessings of the good. And we also ask our family members who didn't follow us here today. May they be here in Toronto, in Brazil, or any other countries around the world, or even in the spiritual realm already discarnated. May they receive our love, our prayers and our wishes. And during these brief moments, when our hearts continued to be filled with the enlightening messages from the examples of our dear Lord Jesus, may the governors of our planet, the leaders, those involved in conflicts, may they receive the light that can remind them of our mission here in this planet. May your love lit a spark of light in their hearts, so they may have the courage, the humbleness to change the direction, to change the conflicts and wars into conversations and fraternal agreements. Thank you, and so be it. So I forgot, but I also would like to welcome our friends who are watching us through the internet. So Nadia, I know you were there watching us, and anyone else, you also can participate to our moderated chat. We have Livia here with us, so you can send your comments or your questions, and everyone else obviously is invited to participate here. So as we mentioned at the very beginning, the topic for today is our everyday Christmas, as we call it. And it personally is my favorite time of the year. And for many, there's even a song, right? The most wonderful time of the year. For some who don't like the winter, you may have second thoughts. But even with the winter, I think it's just great to see people gathering together, right? Putting the decorations around. It's a time of the year where fraternity becomes more close to us. For more than we see people, cutting us off in traffic to get to the store first and buy their presents first, right? Which is not really what the Christmas is all about. I think we all feel the powerful message of Jesus touching us in one way or another. Even people who are not Christians, right? The holidays, as we say, and we wish happy holidays to everyone, the entire world, one way or another, gets touched in our hearts as a humanity, right? But it's already behind. Probably for some of you, some of us, the Christmas tree is already a bit dry. The presents are already unwrapped. Food leftovers are gone. And we ask ourselves, so what now? Is Christmas really gone? What do we do now, right? It's just those 2 or 3 days that precedes and right past Christmas. So what do we do now? And many people started to feel depressed because of the Christmas, or because of the bills that will hit us in January, right? After the stores, the deals. So what is really the message of Christmas for us? It's certainly not the amount of shopping we do, right? It's not the core message for us. It's really the message that Jesus brings to us, and that's the meditation that we will have together. This is what we're going to discuss. And also how we make it last, right? It is great that we all think about making donations and contributions at the Christmas time, right? At the shelters, food drives, but people don't actually eat only at the Christmas time. How about the rest of the year, right? At home, we try to be more understanding, more calm, and talking to our relatives, to our partners. How about the rest of the year? We have 365 days of the year. We cannot be stuck with a single day, right? That's the message. And the message of Christmas, the meaning of Christmas, it can be quite different for some of us. And there is one example which feels like the message of Christmas wrap our hearts. And when we wrap something, we just put a paper, like a gift that we wrap it externally, right? In some cases, we feel like Christmas is just wrapping up our hearts, like a present. But it doesn't really get inside of our hearts. And I'll give you a personal example. It happens around 20 years ago, or a little bit over 20 years ago. And I came from a very small city. I was from the Catholic Church, so we used to go to the church, and we thought we understand the meaning of the Christmas. And one day, at Christmas Eve, I went to celebrate with friends. And we gathered together, all the boys, probably 15, right? The beer was there, cigarette was there, the girls was there, the music and rock and roll was there, and we were all having a good time. All of a sudden, a friend of mine said, let's raise a toast to the one who is having his anniversary today. And in my smart brain, it said, anniversary. Whose birthday is today? And they look at me as if I was an alien. It's Christmas. It's Jesus. And I almost said, Jesus, how could I forget? And I felt miserable for weeks after. I said, this has to be the rock bottom. I can be in this planet, get together with my friends to celebrate Christmas. And when someone asks to raise a toast to the anniversary, I don't know whose birthday is that. So it was really miserable feeling. I was ashamed, but it was truth, because Christmas was all about parties and the presents and Santa Claus and having fun. That was it. It wrapped my heart very externally. Very externally. For others, it has a much deeper meaning. And I will tell you now an interesting story that happens 100 years ago. 100 years ago. No, it didn't happen with me, although you may think, well, Marcos, yeah, no, it wasn't me, I swear. Yeah, thank you, yeah. It's the Canadian weather. So it was actually, the World War I had just started. It was 1914. And the Germans and the British, they were in battle. World War had just started a few months ago. And was exactly December 24th, Christmas Eve. On that day, they were entrenched. They had been entrenched for weeks, very close to each other, right? And they make a hole, a trench, and they were all inside. Rain coming down for days. The trenches were filling with water, freezing cold, and they were shooting at each other. And it's a battle of strength and patience. You gotta be looking at who puts her head up and shoot. There's nothing you can do, because if you walk, the others will shoot you. And they were so close that they could hear each other. They were talking to each other, insulting each other. But on that day, the shooting started to reduce, to the point that in the evening, there was rarely a shot. And suddenly the British heard something that it was deemed impossible. They heard the German singing Holy Night. And they said, am I mad? Are you listening? Yes, and they started to listen. The Germans singing Holy Night. And all of a sudden, 3 heads just poked up at the trenches of the Germans with their hands up, unarmed. They said, we want to celebrate Christmas with you. They said, what? And they said it was a trap. The British was all afraid. But one of them said, I'm going there and talk to them. Let's meet in the middle. So here comes the 3 German and went to the British man. And they said, Merry Christmas. And they shook hands and said, we want to celebrate Christmas. between all of us. Can we do that? I said, yes, we can. And back they went to their trenches and they spread the news, and all of a sudden 30,000 men stood up out of their trenches. You could lose your sight to see, and they gathered together and they exchanged their cakes, their cheese, their drinks, and they gathered together, they exchanged their buttons, their giveaways, and they talked the whole night, and they had a good time on the 25th. Some even say they had a soccer game. There's no evidence, right? And how do we know if that is true? Well, they wrote home. They wrote letters, multiple letters. You can find those letters at the internet. It was just unbelievable. The bottom line is they spent a good time together, and they realized that they were good and decent men with families. And they were there because they were following orders. They are obligated. They had no choice. At the end of the day, on the 25th, here comes December 26th. No shooting. They didn't know what to do because they had such a good time. They made new friends. How can they shot their friends, right? Then their commanders, the German commanders, told them, say, if you don't resume the war, we are going to kill you. It's your choice. And then the British commander said, if you don't resume the war, you're going to the jail as traitors. And they resumed, obviously. But it's an unbelievable story, and here is actually a picture of a German soldier, a couple of them with the British soldier. It's unbelievable how the message of Christmas can stop a war, right? But unfortunately, it didn't last long because they were forced to resume the war. So it's a different process than what I described it personally, which was empty, right? They knew it wasn't right to be killing each other. Unfortunately, they were forced to resume. So with ourselves, I think we also need to think about creating that long-lasting effect, and not only on that day. We have our own personal fights or personal wars internally or maybe with others. And we cannot have only one day as a truce. This was also known as the truce, the Christmas truce of 1914. And we have our own personal truces on Christmas Day. And maybe even during the Christmas party, we already start fighting, right? We don't even give a truce. The relatives that come, and we have little patience with them, or they have little patience with us. So how do we make that a long-last memory and message that can actually change us going forward for the new year that is coming? So we are actually going to use today for this meditation on this, bless you, one single passage or one single message from Jesus' entire story on this planet, which is actually the moment when he was actually born among us. The nativity scene. Emmanuel and also Umberto de Campos, who are both discarnate spirits. Emmanuel was the guide of Chico Xavier, and Umberto de Campos was actually a Brazilian writer, a reporter who passed away. And he is just marvelous with his poetry and his images to explain things. So we are going to explore the meaning of this message. In many cases we see it on the street. Many of us, we have the nativity scene at home, right? The little statues at home or something on the wall. But there's a lot of meaning behind it, and this is actually what we want to discuss today. And this is actually the core of the Christmas, right? What is really Christmas? We celebrate the birth of Jesus. It doesn't matter that he wasn't born on December 25th. We all know that if you do some research on the internet. That's not the case. But it's a convention that we celebrate on December 25th. Is there anything wrong with that? Obviously not, as long as we remember him. That's the important thing. So this is the core of Christmas, or when Jesus actually got born. not the Santa Claus thing. There are different opinions about Santa Claus, right? Some people refuse to talk to Santa because it may be, may create some brain damage or heart damage to their kids. Others keep that alive to, boost their imagination, right? But the core message is that we have to link Christmas to Jesus somehow. And it's possible. We can use our imagination and we can actually have Santa Claus connected to Jesus. We all can do that, right? We don't need to be so strict. But that's the most important message. That's the message behind the wrapping papers. So Jesus was actually born in a period of the first census. The Emperor Caesar Augustus wanted to know how many men he had in his entire empire. And because of his army, he wants to know how powerful or how weak was his army today and for the years to come. How many boys just got born? How many boys are 10 years old? So it started the census. And Mary and Joseph, they left Nazareth to go to Bethlehem for that census. They were traveling. And the analogy that we are invited to do, when we, in some point in our lives, we meet Jesus, we start to think about Jesus, we open our hearts to Jesus, is that it often happens in a time of census, when we start to question, when we are probably tired of counting how many sufferings, how many disappointments, right? How many afflictions we had. And we start to think, maybe it's the time to stop and change. And we often go for God, for Jesus. In these hard times, we start to pray. That's why Humberto de Campos makes this analogy with the census. Or others, sometimes people don't wait for the pain. Sometimes we wait for the maturity, right? We always heard about learning through pain or learning through love, right? Or spiritual maturity. So others may not need to count their pains. We may be able to count our blessings, right? How many blessings we have in life. And we realize there has to be something bigger looking out for us, right? But that's the first analogy. When Jesus came to Bethlehem, still in the womb of his mom, there was no place for him because everyone came to Bethlehem for that census. There were no hotels. And Joseph was looking everywhere. And to the point that he gave up. There was nowhere to go. And we often also have no mental space for Jesus. We are so busy with our aspirations. Our heart is filled with our aspirations, right? With our ambitions in life. Our minds, sometimes we think ourselves as too smart to think about religion, spiritual life, and things that are intangible. So we leave no room for Jesus. He had no room to get born, right? The same thing happened. Someone with a good heart at least gave him a stable where the animals used to go to sleep and to feed themselves. He said, you can have your baby over there. And he was born in the manger, which is where the animals actually eat, right? Sometimes we see some beautiful Christmas card that feels like a very clean space, but he was born in a stable where the animals are there, they do their things on the floor. It must be a stinky, dirty place. The governor of a planet, right? To be born on that kind of place. So it's a bit different reality than what we see. But there's also a meaning for this, right? And he only had a few straws. There was not a very comfortable mattress. We had a little straws. And it's the same way, we also, when we receive Jesus, he encounters a few straws of goodwill. To listen at least. To consider. Yeah, maybe there's a meaning to it, right? So we reserve the darkest places for him in our hearts, in our minds, when he actually reaches out to us. In Emmanuel on the book, On the Way to Delight, which is a marvelous book, he says, the manger marks the starting point for the saving lessons of Christ, as if declaring that humility is the key to all the other virtues. And he himself said he came to serve, not to be served, even if he was the one coordinating the construction of our planet, responsible for all humanity around this planet, right? He came as a servant to serve and was born in a manger. The ultimate lesson of humility to all of us. And if you think about 2015, which is coming, we all do our New Year's plan. I think if we all said, I want to invest my time into become more humble, that's already a good plan. Not 15 things. You should pick one thing, right? So he was born in the darkest hours of the night, as we can see, right? It was the big star that we'll talk about it. But he came in the darkest hours of the night. As we usually only remember God, remember to pray, or remember Jesus in our hardest moments of pain, suffering, abandonment, disappointment, anguish, you name it. We hardly wake up in the morning and say, thank you because I'm awake. Thank you because I have arms and legs, and because I can see and hear, and because I have a work to go to and I have food on my table. We hardly do that, right? Sometimes we spend the life ignoring everything, and we must hit the rock bottom to be able to open up our hearts to Jesus, to our guardian angels, to God, you name it. The magnificent star, or the Star of Bethlehem, even the astrophysics, they keep digging, right? A scientist, was this true? Jesus really exists? Was there really a Star of Bethlehem? And they say, yes, there was possibly a conjunction of planets, Jupiter and Mars together, and made a really bright star in the sky that everyone would notice. It's not, a regular star. There was really a mark. And even that mark, that transformation that starts in our hearts. In the peak of the darkness comes this star, in the great silence, representing the seed sown by Christ that reaches our souls. The divine hope, the star, that light that challenges our darkness internally and makes our darkness fade away, enlightening our present so we see where we are, and also shows the way. That's the message of Jesus, right? That's what that message does to us. If we care enough to think, to digest, to open our hearts. That's what faith does to us. It shows us where we are, what's going on around us, and what is the path to follow ahead. If you think about Paul of Tarsus, which was one of the most relevant Christians that we know, responsible for the Christianity as we know, he wasn't Christian. He was a persecutor. He was killing the Christians. He was stoning the Christians. And he was doing all sorts of wrong things as well. But he believed that he was right. But in the moment that he met Jesus, that star appeared to him in his darkness, his own interior darkness. He changed it completely. To the point that he decided to change his name also. Not going to the details of the story here. Mary of Magdala, she was a prostitute. And at the moment that she met Jesus, in her darkness, tired of her mistakes and sufferings and wrongdoings, she transformed herself in one of the most important followers of Jesus, practicing Jesus' teachings. We can make a long list. If you think about Matthew, who was called Levi before, who was a tax collector. And the tax collector always used to take some money from people, save some for them, and give the rest to Caesar. And he was ashamed, he repented, and he transformed himself as one of the apostles of Christ. And there's a long list. Can we compare ourselves to a Paul of Tarsus, Mary of Magdala, Matthew, and so forth and so on? Of course not. But their stories actually are our stories. Because we all, in some point, one day or another, we will encounter that star. And we will transform ourselves. We all go through that path. The animals, or why are the animals over there? The flock of animals actually were the first visitors to come to Jesus. And why is that? Because all the time we try to do something good, all the time we try to leave our vices behind, what happens? We feel attached to them again. So when we see the light of Jesus, the light of the law of God, when we understand our spiritual responsibilities, our impulses, our inferior impulses, our instincts that really gets us closer to an animal, to the maturity level of an animal, they are always there. They don't want to let go. And that's why the symbol of the animals around reminds us that we don't become saints from one day to another. We don't simply say, I accept Jesus in my heart, and we are a pure spirit. There's no such thing. We can say, yes, I accept, I understand Jesus and the message, I want to follow him, but we still make mistakes. And then we feel guilty because how can I say that I am a Christian? How can I say that I am a Spiritist if I'm still making mistakes? And if you go to the Gospel of Spiritism, we are going to understand that a Christian or a Spiritist is not known by its purity, but by its efforts. How many efforts we are putting to get rid of our imperfections? Are we doing the best we can? That's what really matters, right? That's what it matters. And Paul describes that as his inner battle. So Paul of Tarsus wrote in several letters that he had that inner battle. When he wanted to do good, he still did evil. When he wanted to be patient with someone, he lost his temper. And this is our life. We wanted to do good things, but we still fail. So the important thing is that we must not give up. We must not give up. And that's why keeping the message of Jesus alive with us every single day of the year, it's such an important thing. We can't let that park it on December 25th. How about the shepherds, right? On the left side of the picture. They came to rejoice in the light of Christ. And the shepherds are humble people, maybe illiterate. They don't have great minds, but they have humble hearts. And the symbol of this for us is that we can be the worst criminal in the world. We are still sons and daughters of God. We all have an essence of God inside us. And if you go to the Spirits book, the question 621, Allan Kardec asks the spirits, where is the law of God written? And the Spirit says, in our conscience. So deep inside, we know if we are doing something right or wrong. We always know. And it's always there reminding us, right? And then Allan Kardec asks a follow-up question. So if we all know, if it's always in our conscience, why the law of God had to be revealed to man several times? With Moses, with Jesus, and then with Allan Kardec. Why it has to be revealed if it's all there? It's because we forgot. And we rebel against it. And we don't want to hear because we prefer our inferior preferences, our vices or negative tendencies. We prefer. And God, in His infinite mercifulness and love, He is always sending His messiahs or emissaries or more evolved spirits to remind us of all that. So the shepherds represent the good that we all have inside. We all. No exception. And then Umberto de Campos always described in some of the pictures that we see angels, right? And he says that celestial hymns were sung by angels as a symbol of our spiritual friends. We all have spiritual friends or family members that have discarnated. But most importantly, we all have our guardian angels or spirit protectors. And at the moment that we met Jesus or we open our heart to Jesus, they are rejoicing in the spiritual realm because they are happy to see, like the parable of the prodigal son who left and finally come home, or the rebellious children who rebels against the father and finally comes home. So for them, it's a homecoming that we are opening our hearts, our lives to Jesus again. So it was a beautiful analogy of that. And the shepherds also spread the news. We can see many people coming after. So the shepherds, they go and they spread the news about Jesus to everyone else. So what is this symbol? It's the symbol of our thoughts communicating with other thoughts. Our hearts coordinating already our actions, our words, trying to put our vices behind. So that simple heart, those virtues that we have, starts to transform ourselves from inside to the point that it reaches our outside. It changes our preferences. Maybe changes, what we put inside of our bodies. Maybe changes the words that we often pronounce. Maybe changes our thoughts. So that's the shepherds. Those are the shepherds communicating, transforming ourselves, helping us to make new choices in life. And then finally we have the wise men, the three wise men, which was very unexpected visit for Mary and Joseph. They came to present Jesus with a few gifts and adore him. So who are those wise men? They actually represent the world around us. And Umberto de Campos says that the world around us observe and watch our internal modifications in a very special way. And I found it very interesting that he wrote in a very special way. Because when we started to modify ourselves, what happened with the people around us? Some of them, they will be happy. They will rejoice that finally we are leaving behind things that are not adding value to our lives. They're not making anything, not bringing any good to us. But actually others will watch us closely because they don't want us to go to that path. And I can use a personal example. When I stopped smoking, for example, I had friends that were thrilled. I had others, they would come and offer a cigarette to me every 5 minutes because they would lose their buddy. I couldn't go to smoke with them anymore. Or they were jealous that I was trying to smoke and they were not. Just a small example. We all can change in different areas, and some people will be happy. Others, they don't want us to be happy. They will criticize. They will try to steer us away from that direction. That's why the world around us watches very closely. And others, they would give anything to do what we are doing, but they are afraid. So they are just watching to see what's going to happen. And if they see that the outcome is a positive outcome, they may create the courage to go. That's why our example is so important. Not only for ourselves, but we also help the others around. Even if we don't notice, they are watching us. Anyone, everyone is. That's the message of the wise man that came out of nowhere for Jesus, right? So, as we can see, every single piece of this illustration brings us a message. And this happened in the life of Jesus, but this actually happens in our lives. It is very important for us to remember that. And especially remember that this is not a static picture. it's something that is active, it's alive. As the gospel is not a book to be in a museum for the archaeologists to say these were written by Matthew and Levi and this and that. No, it's alive. It's a manual for us to better ourselves. It's a manual to live on earth or to live in anywhere in this universe. It's alive. It has a heartbeat. It's a living roadmap for us. So New Year is just around the corner, as we said, right? And are we going to wait until December 29th, 24th again to think about Christmas again? It's such a waste of time. It's such a waste of time. Right? And I would like to remind ourselves of this passage from the Gospel of John, when Jesus said that I am the light of the world, and whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life, of the eternal life. Whoever will walk with me. So we actually have a choice to make here. Or we leave that light behind in December and walk alone another year in the darkness of our thoughts, our afflictions, our anguish, or we bring that light with us. That's a choice we all need to make. It's a daily task. And reminding Emmanuel again, he says that those who receive the light has the duty, the mission, the obligation to preserve that light with us, right? So how do we do that? How do we preserve the message of Christ? What is the message of Christ? Because we were discussing here about opening our hearts to Jesus in some point in life. Maybe some of us already did it. Maybe others not yet. Maybe it will happen next year when we really understand that we are no one without God, without Jesus, right? But no matter what is his message? Is to love one another, right? Is to say that the one who is the least on earth can be actually the greatest in the true life, in the spiritual life. That we should prefer to suffer than to cause suffer. That we should prefer not to be loved by someone, even if we love them, than be doing something wrong. To do unto others what we want others to do unto us. Right? He was saying that blessed are the afflicted, because they will be consoled. And Jesus actually explains that our afflictions don't come for granted. The injustice that we go through life has a reason that can only be explained through reincarnation. Otherwise, we rebel against God. What have I done to deserve that, right? So this is the message that we have to keep alive in our hearts. So I have 3 things to finish our meditation here as humble suggestions to all of us to keep that alive in the new year that is about to start for all of us. The first one is that we often see the negative side of things, right? It's human nature. We are so attached to our negative things that we tend to see the negativity around us. Someone the other day showed me that they created a journal in Brazil about only good things. They only have good news. Because if you open the papers, it's only tragedy, right? People dying, and drugs, and fires, and hunger, and misery, and sickness. That's what sells the papers. Blood. And there was an interesting paper about the good things. So why don't we all, in our homes, in any days during the holiday season that is still going on, we probably have January 1st maybe as a day off, or whoever has a day off, gather the family at home, get 2 plates or 2 bowls, and ask every single one of your family members in a little piece of paper to write the good things that happened in 2014 and put it on the good bowl. And write the tough things that happened, the unpleasant, the challenging, the things that hurted us, our feelings, in the bad bowl. Let's call it bad bowl for now. And let's see the volume of things. And I bet the blessings, if we are really thinking hard, the blessings are much greater. In that bad bowl that we call bad, how much we grown because we went through that. How much we become more mature because we had those disappointments, because people hurt us, because we were sick. Something we learned from it, which at the end of the day should be all part of the good bowl. But do this exercise at home. We have already scheduled at home to do it. We'll certainly do it. So I encourage you to do it. But we should remind of St. Augustine in the Spirit's book as well, the question 919a, when he says, at the end of every day, run in your mind your day in retrospective and think about the good things that you did, that we did, that we wanted to repeat in the next day. Or the things that we did that were not so great, that maybe we were ashamed to do it, and try not to do in the following day. So this exercise is something that we all can do every single day. When we go home and when we pray before a bedtime, or when we wake up in the morning, we should do that exercise every day, not once a year. The second suggestion, the gospel at home. Independent of our religion, usually we go to the church, to the temple, to the Spiritist center once a week. What happens in the other days of the week, right? It's very tough. We come, we get some messages, we feel energized, we see some friends, we receive our passes, and then the energy just go down throughout the week. Why not to have another spike? Maybe on Wednesday, maybe on Monday. You pick a day, one specific day, one specific time. Why a day and time? Because our spirits, our guardian angels or protector spirits, they will be there with us. They have a lot of work to do, so they cannot be there waiting, well, when is Teresa going to start, right? So they know that, okay, Wednesdays, 7 p.m., they will be there. The passes that you receive here, we receive at home, right? The inspiration that we receive here, we will receive at home. Not only you, your entire home, your entire family, the discarnate spirits. And André Luiz even say that when a family have a gospel home, the entire street is benefited from it. So all your neighbors. So why not? Once a week. Okay, maybe too hard to start. Start with once a month. But pick a day, pick a time. 15 minutes. Just read a little passage as we do at the beginning here. Then do our initial prayer. Read the passage of the gospel. Just exchange your thoughts with your family members. And a prayer to close. Have your water over there. This is it. Or what if my husband is from another religion, or my wife is from another religion, or an atheist, and they don't like me to pray at home? Or do as a friend of mine used to do. Her husband didn't allow her to do the gospel home because he was from another religion. So she used to do the gospel home in her bathroom, by herself. She never gave up. She always did it. And last but not least, our children, right? If we don't have kids, we may have siblings, or neighbors may have kids, or our friends may have kids. How can we help them, right? Why not to read them a bedtime story from the Jesus God? There are so many books with stories about Jesus, with profound moral teachings that can still be fun and interesting for them. But it will give them, bless you, the moral base to live in this planet. Why not to do that? Why we have to read stories about, Red Hood and the Wolf, or Cinderella? Nice stories I've read numerous times from my girls, but we also read those kind of stories for them. And we may say, oh, they don't understand. Yes, they do understand better than us. Better, they get hooked into the story. And when you stop reading, they say, already, can you read more? We are missing the opportunities. Those kids, they may be more evolved and have their hearts more open than ours to the gospel. Why not to do it? Why not give a book as a present? Why always has to be a toy? Right? Because we need that. parents are delegating more and more the education of their kids to schools, to the daycares. Guess what? They don't care. They say they care, but they don't care about their hearts. They care about keeping them there, keeping them safe, to educate them, to teach them some social skills, but they don't teach our kids moral. They take care of their brains for good schools. And end of the story. Who will take care of their hearts? We can't delegate. There's no outsourcing for it. It has to be ourselves as parents. Final thing about the kids is we just went to the movie yesterday to watch. What's the name of the movie? Into the Woods. And it was it's Walt Disney, right? It was shocking to see a scene where a peasant with her husband and children, right? She just gave birth to a baby. She met the prince, who was also engaged with the princesses. And the prince actually took advantage of the peasant because they were in the woods, as if the woods were like Vegas. What happens in Vegas, stay in Vegas. So in the movie, actually, the prince has an affair with the peasant over there and with the baby. That's a movie for kids, for goodness sake. Right? It happens every day. Yes, it happens every day. It's part of our world. Yeah, it's part of our world. But you are giving that message to children as if, it's okay. If you get married, you can go to the street and go to the bar and you have fun with someone. That's not okay. That's not a moral teaching. Right? So if we outsource the hearts of our children to schools and to movies, we are unfortunately taking them out of their path. And as parents, or uncles and aunties, or even friends, as Christians, we gotta help them. So the last and the third is, bring the message of Jesus to them. It's a major contribution that we can all have in their lives. And this is something, my friends, that we can do every day. And we should do every day. To keep that little light over there, to keep shining and keep expanding every single day of the new year. And this is what we wish every single one of you from the bottom of our hearts. Because Jesus is always with us. The question is, are we with him? And that's it. Any comments or questions, Livia? Any questions or comments from anyone? If not, I want to thank you for your attention, for your time, and we will now reorganize here for the passes. Okay?